The coarse ropes dug so deep into her wrists that her hands had gone completely numb. Clara Whitfield was pinned against the rough frame of the town, as old corral, the splintered beams pressing into her back. Her arms were pulled high, stretched until every muscle trembled from the strain. Her legs were tied so tight she could hardly shift her weight without pain. The desert sun blazed overhead, skin scorching as each bead of sweat slipped into an open bruise, setting it aflame. The heat did not just punish her body, it tore away her dignity, peeling it away in front of eyes that once looked upon her with kindness. Surrounding her stood the very people she had trusted, neighbors who once broke bread with her family, women who had laughed at her table, sipping coffee, and trading sewing patterns. Now they glared at her like she was dust beneath their boots, their lips curled with disgust, their eyes empty of compassion. "Thief!" someone shouted. The word struck harder than a whip. Another voice rose. "She's the shame of Red Hollow." A colder one followed. "Let her rot." Clara shook her head until her tangled hair stuck to her damp cheeks. Her voice cracked as she tried to speak. "I did nothing," but the words broke, lost in the roar of judgment. Every plea fell flat under the weight of their silence, or worse, their laughter. A boy, no taller than Clara, as waist just years ago, now stood bold with a stone in hand. He hurled it at her shoulder. The crowd murmured in approval. Her knees buckled, but the ropes dragged her upright again, forcing her weakness into a cruel spectacle. The sun hammered down, her lips splitting dry, her face burning raw. She could even lift a hand to wipe the sweat from her eyes. The world blazed white, yet no soul looked close enough to see her truth. Memories stabbed sharper than the rope. The blacksmith, who once tipped his hat when she passed. The butcher who had slipped her scraps of beef when she was a girl. The midwife who held her hand through fever. Now they all looked away. Shame weighed on her chest until each breath was shallow. This was no justice. This was cruelty dressed up as order. She twisted against the cords, skin tearing. "Please, I beg you." The wind carried her cry away. The townsfolk did not flinch. The sun climbed higher. Flies swarmed, crawling across her wounds. Sweat burned like salt in every cut. Her throat raw, her tongue heavy, she whispered anyway. "Why me? Why like this?" The humiliation scorched hotter than the sun itself. She wanted to collapse, to vanish into dust, but the ropes kept her standing for all to see. Her mind screamed while her lips barely moved. Would anyone ever believe her? And then, through haze and pain, a memory cut sharp. The look in Marcus Hale's days ago when he cornered her in the barn. The words he hissed, the hand that reached where it had no right, her refusal. His rage, soon after the missing cattle. The whisper, the blame that landed perfectly on her shoulders. Clara pressed her cheek to the rough wood, tears mixing with dirt. One thought beat hard inside her chest. If every voice condemns me, if every neighbor turns away, who will uncover his lie before the sun finishes me? Suddenly movement. Ethan Callahan dropped to one knee, tugging at the knots biting into her wrist. Her skin was raw, her breath ragged, but she lifted her head enough to meet his eyes. Not just fear lived there, but the last shred of hope. Just as the rope began to loosen, a voice split the air. "Step away, Callahan." Ethan froze. Slowly, he turned. Marcus Hale strode forward, son of the town elder, smirk sharp as a blade. At his side lumbered a broad-shouldered farmhand clutching a heavy stick. Ethan rose to his feet, sweat glistening on his brow. He did not speak yet. He simply stood between Clara and the two men. His silence lit the fuse. Marcus twirled the knife in his hand, eyes narrowing. "She stays. Nobody touches her." Ethan's jaw clenched, his voice steady. "You said your piece. Now she is coming down." Clara's voice burst out weak but fierce. "You liar, you tried to force me. I said no, and then you blamed me for the cattle." The words cracked like a gunshot. Marcus flinched, eyes flickering with fear and fury. The farmhand lunged, stick swinging. Ethan caught it with one hand, slammed his shoulder into the man's chest. The farmhand collapsed into dust, coughing. Marcus snarled, knife flashing. He slashed wild. Ethan's reflexes sharp as ever caught the wrist, twisted hard. The blade clattered to dirt. Marcus stumbled, fists flying, but Ethan's punch landed square on his jaw. Blood sprayed as pride shattered. Clara sagged against the ropes, tears streaking, but this time with relief. For the first time, Marcus looked small, defeated. Ethan bent, freed the last knot, catching Clara before she fell. Her voice shook, but her words cut steel. Tell them, Ethan, tell them about his knife. Ethan lifted the blade from the dirt. The handle carved with a letter H, Marcus's mark. Clara's voice steadied. I saw him drop it by the fence that night. Marcus sputtered. That means nothing. But his words stumbled, his breath uneven. Ethan loomed over him. You set her up because she refused you, the crowd muttered, truth creeping into their ears. Ethan's voice hardened. This knife will be enough for Sheriff Ryder. Marcus spat dust, pride bleeding faster than his lip. The sheriff listens to my father. Not you. Ethan's lips curled into a half smile. He's known me longer than your daddy has been breathing easy. The crowd's silence thickened. Marcus turned, storming off. The farmhand stumbled after. Ethan lifted Clara onto his horse. Hold tight, we're riding into town. As the hooves struck dry earth, Ethan's voice carried. We'll see how brave Marcus feels when the sheriff sees this. And right here, friend, if you were caught up in this story, Dante, forget to hit that subscribe button, like and comment to show your support, because we are just getting to the heart of it. The ride into Red Hollow was slow, the horse steady beneath two weary souls. Clara leaned against Ethan, her voice a whisper. Do you think he'll believe us? Ethan's answer was firm. If Ryder is the man I knew, he'll hear truth. By the time they reached the sheriff's office, Clara's head drooped on Ethan's shoulder. Sheriff Ryder looked up, shocked. Clara Whitfield, Lord above. Ethan set her in a chair. She was strung up like a thief, all because Marcus wanted revenge. The sheriff folded his arms. Strong words, Ethan. You know who his father is. Ethan laid the knife on Ryder's desk. The carved H glaring under the lamplight. Clara forced herself upright. Her voice cracked, but steady. He tried to take what once his. I refused. Then he stole cattle and blamed me. Silence. The sheriff's boots tapped the floor. Finally he sighed. I knew that boy carried arrogance. Did he think he'd sink this low? Ethan leaned in. Will you stand with truth, Ryder, or let the elder son walk free? Their eyes locked. Ryder nodded. I'll bring this before the council. Marcus will face questions he can't dodge. Relief softened Clara's shoulder, but Ryder's tone sharpened. This one to go quiet. His father won to allow it. Ethan tipped his hat. Then we'll meet him head on. That evening the town council gathered. The square went silent as Ryder placed the knife on the table. The carved H burned into every eye. Marcus stood pale, his father fuming beside him. Clara sat firm, hands folded, bruises visible but spirit unbroken. She lifted her chin, speaking clear. I never stole from this town. I only said no to a man who thought he could take what once his. The room shifted. Whispers turned to shame. Ethan stood behind her, steady as stone. Ryder's final words rang out. This town has had enough lies. Marcus Hale will answer. And as Clara stepped into the sunlight again, it did not feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. She turned to Ethan. You saved me. He smiled faint. Maybe you saved yourself. I just stood close. And friends, if this story hit you deep, show it some love. Tap subscribe, like, and drop a comment, because there are more Wild West tales ahead where truth and courage clash against power. The West isn't done testing hearts yet.